Hello folks from New York Post. Professor collapsed and dies in front of virtual class amid COVID-19 symptoms. Wow. A college professor in Argentina who had been suffering from persistent coronavirus symptoms collapsed and died at her home during a lecture in front of her virtual class, according to reports. Paula De Simon, 46, who taught 20th century world history at Universidad Argentina de la Empresa in Buenos Aires, complained she was having trouble breathing during the Zoom session last week, the Sun report, citing diary mess. Her alarmed student asked her to give them her home address so they could summon help, but she gasped, "I can't," before collapsing, according to the news outlet. Simon's husband, a doctor, discovered her lifeless body when he came home. The professor, who also is survived by a doctor, had mentioned her health struggle and her husband war amid the pandemic on Twitter. "It's very complicated. I've been here with the virus for more than 4 weeks and the symptoms don't go away," the Simmons wrote, according to The Sun. "My husband is exhausted from working so much at the moment." One of her students, Anna Brexia, 23, described the professor's last moments. She began by saying that she had pneumonia. "We saw it was worse than it in previous classes," she said. At one point, she couldn't continue passing slides nor speak, and she became unbalanced. Another student called the Simon an unforgettable teacher, one of those who gave you a hand in everything, who make you love what you study, who go out of their way for the students. "We are going to miss you a lot," the Sun report. Sylvia Sterin-Pencil, an Argentine journalist in New York, said she was not surprised her friend and former classmate at Universidad del Salvador had still been teaching. "I totally portray Paula deciding, I can totally do this. My students need me," she told the Washington Post, adding the professor that is a sad reminder that the virus is real. Sterin-Pencil, who met the Simon in 1992, described her friend as a brilliant person who displayed the traits of a successful educator even back then. "You could tell already she had a bright future ahead in teaching or in any endeavor she set her mind to," she told the Washington Post. "She was already displayed the critical thinking you find more in professor than in a student." Michelle Denise Bolo, who said that she took the Simon's economic class at the Universidad de Buenos Aires in 2017, told the paper that the energetic professor always got her full attention. "Her classes were at 7 a.m. It was very difficult sometimes. We were sleepy, but it was crazy because everybody listened to me," the 20 years old told the Washington Post. "By the end of the class, nobody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to keep talking about what she was explaining." Bolo said that when a friend informed her about the Simon's death, she spent several hours messaging friends and former classmates to share their recollection about the beloved professor. "It was like we kind of needed that sharing of memories. It was very heartbreaking when we found out," she told the paper. She managed to show herself and talk about her life and her passions and her other jobs. "She was very personal but also super professional," Bolo added. "There are teachers that are sometimes unapproachable. She was nothing like that. More than 450,000 COVID 19 cases and over 9,000 fatalities have been reported in Argentina, according to Johns Hopkins University. The virus is still making rounds in Buenos Aires. Sterin Pencil told the newspaper, in Argentina, the confinement has been very strict, so people are showing signs of fatigue in complying. But this kind of reminders, this is awful reminder. They shake your core. The Universidad Argentina de la Empresa said in a statement that the Simone's that had left the institution with deep pain. Paula was a passionate and dedicated teacher and a great person with more than 15 years of experience. Wow, very sadly, this young, healthy COVID 19 survivor faced long term issue. When Jack Goldston tested positive for COVID 19 in April, he thought beating it would be a breeze. He was 20 years old, athletic, and had zero pre existing condition. 5 months later, he still can't walk down the street without becoming completely winded and is plagued with debilitating headache, digestive issues, congus sinus, and racing a heart. They gave me all type of medication. I was a nebulizer. I was on multiple inhaler. They gave me multiple antibacterial medication. Literally all types of medication. Goldenstein told the Post. None of them really seemed to help. The Rockland County man, an avid hiker and baseball player, first developed a blinding headache on April 3 during his shift as package handler at FedEx and tested positive for COVID 19 2 days later. I was one of those stubborn kids thinking that this wouldn't happen to me. I just thought if I were to get it, I would get like a common cold, Golden raps. But then it actually hit me the worst way. I got literally all those symptoms basically, and I'm still dealing with them. And he is hardly alone. As states across the US tackle their initial wave of coronavirus infections, New York is facing a new kind of crisis in the backdrop of a flattened curve. How to handle COVID 19 survivors with long term symptoms. They call themselves long haulers and they're suffering from a myriad of symptoms, including shortness of breathing, fatigue, body ache, and a variety of cognitive issues after their initial infection clear up. They say they are living in bodies they no longer recognize. I'm not the same girl that I was before COVID, said Dennis Federico, a 32 years old Big Apple nurse who's been battling a mixed bag of brain fog, fatigue, fatigue, headaches, and chest pain for almost 5 months. This is not the same body I had on March 25. In late July, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention acknowledged the prevalence of COVID 19 long hauler for the first time. In a survey of 292 people who test positive for the virus, the CDC found 35% hadn't returned to their usual state of health 2 or 3 weeks after the test. 20% of those respondents were between the age of 18 and 34 and had no previous chronic medical condition. The Post spoke with 11 New Yorkers who all tested positive for the virus or for antibodies, have since tested negative, but continue to be sick with marginal, if any, improvement. They were never admitted to the hospital and considered themselves in good health before catching the book. I'm terrified. It just doesn't go away, said Marta Barrera, a 51 years old bank manager from Maybrook. Since March 15, Barrera hasn't had one day without symptoms. She's dealing with lingering shortness of breath, back pain, unbelievable fatigue, hair loss, neuropathy, and was recently diagnosed with diabetes, which her doctors say was brought on by COVID 19. It has changed my life completely, Barrera said. I work as long as I can work, and then I just have to ask to go home, and then I go to sleep like there's nothing much else I can do for the rest of the day. Helen Thompson Buffon, 46, also hasn't had a single day without symptoms since they began on April 2. She's lost her ability to care for her two young children. Her career is on hold, and she is suffering from fatigue, neuropathy, shortness of breath, internal vibration, and body pain. It's torture, the Brooklynite told the Post. It's the hardest and scariest thing I've ever had to do. Olga Z, a bank examiner from Brooklyn, hasn't been the same since March 23. I feel like an old person. I'm only 46, she said. Her body arches, coupled with hot flashes and arthritis, are debilitating, and her hair has been falling out in clumps. Wow, 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 wow. It's very scary, everybody. Coronavirus is real. Wow.